Hey, how's it going everyone? It's me, it's Jinsula, and welcome to another Pokemon Go video. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive on the brand new Pokemon Bewear. This is a Pokemon that is making its debut through its own community day, and a lot of people are wondering if this Pokemon is any good. This is of course because it is one of those that has a 400 candy cost to evolve, and that is something that typically comes with Pokemon that are meta relevant. Unfortunately for Bewear, that may not necessarily be the case, and I'm going to be talking about why in this video. So let's roll the intro and jump right into it. Alrighty, so let's talk about Bewear. So this Pokemon is a normal and fighting type Pokemon, and it's making its debut during Stufful Community Day, which is happening on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. But the question that's on everyone's mind is whether or not this Pokemon is any good. Well, in order to determine that, let's get down to the brass tacks. So Bewear is a normal and fighting type Pokemon, like I mentioned earlier, and in terms of its base stats, it has an attack stat of 226, a defense stat of 141, and stamina of 260. Based on these stats alone, you could tell that this Pokemon is lacking in a lot of defense, but it does have a decently high attack stat and stamina. Unfortunately, that attack stat is not high enough where Bewear would be a viable raid attacker. If you were to compare it to other fighting type Pokemon, like for example with Conkeldurr and Machamp, you would see that this Pokemon is about a mid-tier Pokemon in terms of fighting type raid damage. This is of course based on just stats alone, but if we were to look at its move pool, it's not looking good either. Bewear can have any of these fast moves: Tackle, Low Kick, and Shadow Claw. Among all of these, obviously Low Kick would be the one you would want to use for raid battles, but unfortunately the amount of damage that Low Kick deals for the amount of energy that you gain is fairly low, which means it's not necessarily going to be the most ideal fast move if you're looking at it from a pure raid damage point of view. Now, in terms of Shadow Claw, there is actually a lot of potential there for PvP, but we'll get more into that later. And then finally, with Tackle, it is a very mediocre fast move. Even though it does benefit from stab, it's not necessarily going to be that great for raid damage. This is also compounded by the fact that there's not a lot of raid bosses out there that are weak against normal type attacks. Next, let's move on to the charge attacks that Bewear can have. It can come with either Superpower, Payback, or Stomp, and its Community Day move is going to be Draining Punch. Now, among all of these, obviously Superpower is going to be the standout in terms of raid damage. It is a very powerful fighting type attack, but it is going to be outclassed by a lot of other fighting type moves, such as with Close Combat and Dynamic Punch. So if you have a Pokemon that has Dynamic Punch, that's probably going to be better for raid DPS against Pokemon that are weak against fighting types. And then when it comes to its Community Day move, Draining Punch, it is a move that is designed more for PvP, so unfortunately for raid damage, it's going to fall by the wayside. So overall, Bewear is extremely disappointing when it comes to raid DPS. It's going to get outclassed by pretty much every other fighting type that is sitting at the top of raid damage dealers. And then of course, there's very few bosses that are going to be weak against normal types, which means it's not going to be that great if you're working with Tackle and Stomp. And of course, Payback doesn't benefit from stab, so it's not going to be viable for dark type raid damage as well. But next, let's move on to PvP, because if this Pokemon is going to be used anywhere in Pokemon Go, it will likely be in the Go Battle League. Unfortunately, it's not looking too good as a PvP Pokemon, and the reason for that is because it does lack a lot of the necessary stats to be an actual viable counter to a lot of those Pokemon that are weak against fighting types. I would actually say it's comparable to the other new Pokemon that was introduced recently, a Ranguru, which means it's going to be pretty good for specialty cups where other fighting types are going to be locked out. I don't necessarily know what kind of cup would actually do that, but Bewear does have potential in those specific situations. Let's go back to the move pool, because I think this is where Bewear actually stands out in terms of a PvP Pokemon. The fact that it has Shadow Claw as a fast move is actually pretty significant because Shadow Claw is a very powerful move for Pokemon that would typically counter Bewear. This obviously includes Psychic types, so Bewear is going to be somewhat of a threat to a lot of Psychic types that would come out in order to counter this specific Pokemon. But again, it's purely circumstantial. Bewear is most likely only going to be viable in specialty cups where some of the most commonly used fighting types like Medicham and Machamp are going to be locked out. In those cases, Bewear is going to be a really decent second option for fighting types. But of course, there is a lot of potential with this Pokemon. Draining Punch is not necessarily going to be that great right now, but in the future it might get a damage boost, which will actually make it a viable move. It currently has the unique trait of boosting the defense of the user, but unfortunately it kind of gets leveled out with its low damage for its energy cost, which means unfortunately it's not necessarily going to be the best move you can bring, especially if you look at the other charge attacks that are in Bewear's arsenal. This Pokemon actually has superpower among its move pool, and if you're not familiar with this particular move, it's a really good fighting type attack in most cases. It has a really high damage output for its energy cost, which is why it's a very popular move to have in the Go Battle League. Of course, it offsets that by reducing the attack and defense stat of the user every time it is used, so you will want to use it in very specific situations where you baited out one or both of the opponent's shields. So, the final verdict in terms of PvP is that Bewear is not necessarily going to be viable compared to other Pokemon that are fighting types, but it does have a lot of potential in specialty cups, and its overall usefulness is going to be dependent on whether or not Niantic increases the damage of Draining Punch in the future, which is very possible. So in conclusion, this Pokemon is quite disappointing. If you get yourself a really good one that you want to show off, then yes, maybe it is worth maxing out, but overall, this Pokemon is going to be very lackluster compared to other fighting type Pokemon that are currently out there, but this Pokemon does have a lot of potential in the future, but it's all going to depend on if Niantic does buff up its moves, and like I said, that is a very strong possibility in the future. We'll just have to wait and see, but at least this Pokemon does have that coolness factor because it does have a very adorable bear-like appearance. Maybe you could use it to defend a gym that's themed around a certain Pokemon, like a gym that's full of bear Pokemon or something like that, but other than that, there really is no point in using this Pokemon in raid battles, and it's going to be very situational in PvP, so it's not necessarily going to make a splash there as well. Anyway, that's going to be it for this deep dive of Bewear. I'm pretty disappointed that this Pokemon is not necessarily viable because I always thought this Pokemon was really cool in its design, especially when you see it in the Pokemon mainstream games, but unfortunately with Pokemon Go, it's not that great, and yeah, it's really unfortunate. But I would love to know your thoughts regarding this Pokemon down below. Is this a Pokemon that you plan to use in the Go Battle League, regardless if it's viable or not? Definitely share that down below, and if you are also disappointed by this Pokemon, definitely share your reasons down below as well. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if it's your first time here, and don't forget that little bell so you stay up to date on whenever I upload videos. And I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons on Patreon. You make this channel content possible. If you want to support this channel in any way, then do check out the links in the description below. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm Count Jinsula. Be safe, have fun, love yourself, and I'll catch you all later.